The first story that we're going to get into this week, I think probably affects everybody who is listening, to this show. It's where the Democrats have proposed a ban. I should say, two Democrats have proposed a ban on data caps. So, if you think about your wireless plan, there is probably some kind of data cap on it. Even if they tell you have unlimited data, depending on what carrier you're on, means anywhere from probably
Hmm.
15 gigabytes to like 22, maybe 25 gigabytes of data. And then they start to meter you after that. And what Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey and Ben Ray Luján of New Mexico have proposed is the Uncap America Act, where they would actually place bans on the telecom companies from placing these really the data caps are ridiculous because they don't really do anything. It's not like there is a limited amount of data. So for them to cap you at 22 gigabytes, to cap you at 15 gigabytes, to cap you at 30 gigabytes doesn't actually do anything. So they want to actually, get these things removed. I'm all for that, but I won't even say that it's definitely not going to get bipartisan support. I don't know if it's going to get partisan support because there's a whole lot of Democrats, just like Republicans, who are,
On
you
them
know,
payrolls,
exactly.
on those big telecom payrolls.
So I'm all for it if they can get it done, because when you think about how data works, like I said, they think, well, if you're using more than 22 gigs, you're taking data away from someone else. And that is absolutely not how it works. If you think of data, think of those big concrete culverts, those big giant storm pipes. If that's the data that comes from, the data, from the telecom companies, well, when you get your broadband connection to your house, it's like putting a straw in that. Now, ultimately, if thousands and thousands of people are all pulling the maximum amount of data at the same time that they possibly can, that could be affected. The flow of that overall data could be affected, but that has nothing to do with the amount of data that you've transferred from time A to time B. It has all to do with how many people are pulling, on the data at the same time. So it's kind of like if you ever lived in an apartment building where everybody's taking a shower at the same time, you may not have the same water pressure. That's how
Hmm.
data is versely affected. It's not whether or not you fill your bathtub up to the tippy top every single time you run the bathtub. It's just
Right.
what time are you running it in, conjunction with other people who are also running it. So data caps really don't make any sense in the way that the companies are using them at this point. The way they're using them right now is literally just to, when you hit this arbitrary number, we ultimately can get more money out of you.
We can charge you more money. Yep.
Right. So what are your guys' thoughts on them actually trying to get something passed?
Say they did something. I don't know.
Well, no, they
Say
just
they
That's
they
say they
just
tried something.
that's kind of what it
they
sounds
just they
like to
just
me.
they
Yeah.
just introduced legislation. Like I said, Cory Booker, Ben Ray Luján.
It
Um,
seems, is this supposed to be some sort of like interim step before we can get internet classified as a public utility? Because that's the real thing. This seems like, to Terrance's point, a little bit performative, or maybe it's again that interim step. They're taking baby steps towards public utility classification or something. Because I think they should be all in on that, and all these little baby steps in between. I don't know necessarily that they make that much of a difference, but I don't think people really understand what all of this adds up to either. So maybe people think that this is a big step or a big stride or something.
I remember, this is back in the day. My wife has the primary phone for whatever reason. Her number is the primary on our plan. Well, I know why.
Mm,
I had a work phone for years and years and years. So when I got the family plan, her phone was the primary one on it because it was always my backup phone. But she would say, "Hey, to like my oldest daughter, she's about to run out of data," and I'm like, how do you run out of data? You can't really run out of data. It's an unlimited thing, but no, she's going to hit the amount of data because she would stream everything to her phone. And this is back in the day when you didn't get 22 gigs, you got 7 or 9, so you could eat through that pretty quickly.
hmm.
Your question was, is this to make this a public utility again? I don't know what they're doing. To me, this is one of those things to where you're introducing something that has no chance because, as I said, bipartisan. it's not that, but I don't know that they can actually get this through just the Democrats in the Senate to
Right.
try to get this thing passed. If I had, if I would hope they were working on something, it's like, let's bring net neutrality back. Let's make it so that the little guys can actually
That
compete
too.
with Google.
Right.
I don't need to be protected by my internet company by making it impossible for me to compete with Netflix. They have somehow spun that into, they're doing the things they do there for our protections. That's not necessarily what this story is, but that's what I would hope that they would bring back if they're going to do anything, make it to where, a bit is a bit, a bite is a bite. And, you're not getting preferential treatment if you are on this service as compared to that service, or, if you don't use our service, you can't get HBO. No one's really doing that. You can always buy HBO, but what you're seeing now is that, depending on what company you go with and who they're owned by, bundles happen.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And that, I think that was the point of the whole idea of the public utility, is that it would sort of net neutrality would kind of be built into that idea by default. So yeah, I mean, shout out to Cory Booker, like he trying to justify his paycheck or something, I guess. But
well, you know what? You miss 100% of the shots you'd ever take. But
right, you're absolutely right. I'm not
I,
mad. So,
I
you
generally
know,
I generally try to have a optimistic view of stuff,
you
but
do. You're
th-
the you're
this
the
this I can't on this
you're the
one.
rose-colored
This would
glasses one of the group. I'm like,
this
yeah.
this would it has no shot. It has no shot.
And I
No.
don't know, and it's funny because you wonder about this type of thing, and you wonder if they're just doing it for a psychological win, because there are such other ginormous looming issues like abortion right, reproductive rights, and gun control. And there's like so much other, and it's like, can we just do this one thing just to maybe get some momentum going, or make us feel better, or just, boost morale in Washington, or like, I would really love to understand the motivation behind these types of initiatives that don't make a whole lot of sense, that wouldn't make that much difference if they passed at all, that don't have a good chance of getting passed anyway. Like all of that stuff. It's just like, what is the point of this, besides optics?
Like I said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and you never know. At some point, people might say, that kind of makes sense. It happens. Bills do get
I
passed, but
guess.
believe it or not, in our government, things actually do happen from time to time that are beneficial to people. So, like I said, I don't know if
You
I
say
take the
so.
jaded juice today, but yeah, those things do happen. So this is one of those ones. But like I said, I'm not going to hold my breath on the Uncap America Act. I absolutely and it absolutely is something that needs to be done, because if you just think, as I said, the reason for the caps makes no logical sense. There's not a finite amount of data, so to cap
Well,
you
it
at a
does.
yeah.
It for the company, it makes perfect
Oh,
sense.
it makes perfect sense for them.
How do
Yeah,
we make more money? Our
Hmm.
society is built on making as
yeah.
much money as possible. And as these companies, these data companies, like, oh, we can come up with these tiers, and you got to pay for this much, and you got to pay for this much, and you got to pay for this much. Makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. I mean,
Mm.
ours again, it's to me, it's part of a bigger picture. You get rid of data caps and you get rid of these type of practices when you get rid of the larger things that affect society, like in this case, net neutrality, like you mentioned. You make the internet free and open in general, and then little things like this kind of fall into place versus trying to chop at the little bitty things,
Right,
but you got this big old
right,
trunk. That's,
right.
your little chopping ain't gonna do too much of a difference. But again, can our capitalistic society make a large enough change to how we do business on the internet, or how the internet runs in general, to where this becomes a moot point? And I don't know if we can do that.